And I'm going to give you one example of enterprise search in a little bit more detail. And this is the example of Westlaw, which is a company. It's a legal search company. So basically they have this huge corpus of legal documents. So every point from the law, for example, the law of the country, or all kinds of laws will be written down, and legal cases that have been going on in court and so on. They'll have documents pertaining to all that. And what people do is, especially lawyers, they subscribe to Westlaw, and by subscribing to Westlaw, you gain access to those documents. So you can enter Boolean queries, and Westlaw will retrieve documents based on what your Boolean queries are. So they have about 500,000 subscribers uh, even today, who perform millions of searches a day over tens of terabytes of text data. So this company was started in 1975, and even today most people tend to use Boolean search on Westlaw. So they tend to use Boolean queries, which they connect using various Boolean operators, even though Westlaw has added ranked retrieval since 1992. So why do you think that lawyers would continue to still use Boolean queries even though they've been provided the option of using ranked retrieval? I mean, ranked retrieval is something that people use all the time on Google and all. So why would lawyers prefer to why would anybody still prefer to use Boolean queries?
Like lawyers, they may have a I mean, a general idea of what they're looking for already. So they just want to narrow it down. But they probably, I mean, I'm thinking like in a web search scenario, most of the time you don't know what's going to come up. So I think that could be, I think that could be a reason.
Okay, okay. So you're saying that lawyers have a precise idea of what they're looking for,
At
and
least a general idea, like maybe some case was there or something like that, and they want a precedent, so something like that.
yeah. The other thing is that, as we just saw, Boolean Boolean retrieval systems have a very precise semantics. When you get a result, you precisely know why you got that result because it matched your query. There's no there's no fuzziness in that. So as long as your query is precise enough, you can be guaranteed that whatever results you're getting are matching, are relevant to the query. And particularly if you look at, professions like lawyers, they may often be interested, they may also be interested in in the precise language that is being used in the document. Right? So they can be very precise in how they build up their queries, and they would be interested in every single document. So they don't want to miss any document that could be relevant to them. Right? So um, here's an example of the kinds of things that a lawyer could search for on Westlaw. So let's say there's a lawyer who wants information on the legal theories that are involved in preventing the disclosure of trade secrets by employees formerly employed by a competing company. Okay, so you're working at a company and then you go and work for a rival company. So what laws are there to prevent you from disclosing information that you had at your previous company to this new rival company that you're working for? So if you want information on that, this is the kind of query that you would submit to Westlaw. You would say, give me all documents which contain the phrase trade secrets. So this double quotes it signifies a phrase query. A phrase query is a query where you can have more than one term, and the exact phrase must appear in the document. So it won't do to have trade and secret both appear, but appearing in different paragraphs, for example, or secret appearing before trade. That's not a good match. Trade secret must appear as it is as a phrase in the same sentence. So this slash s is a formal notation saying I want the phrase documents which contain this phrase trade secret in the same sentence as a word starting with disclos, right? And this wildcard, this exclamation mark is basically like a wildcard character. It's saying any word that starts with disclose, and this is to indicate that whether this is to handle variants of this word. So disclosure, disclosed, disclosing, these are all different forms of the same verb, and you can get all variants of that word. You can capture all the variants of that word by having this uh, a wildcard query. In the same sentence as the word prevent, in the same sentence as the word employee. Again, as a word starting with employe. So look at the precision of this query and also the length of this query. So think of a sentence which satisfies this query. What kind of sentence would that be? It would have the phrase trade secret, it would have a word starting with disclose, it would have prevent, it would have a word starting with employee. So it's going to most likely match this information need. So professional searchers know how to translate their information need into a precise query. And in a Boolean retrieval model, in a Boolean retrieval system, they feel that they have power and transparency over what they are getting in the result, right? Because they are deciding what query to submit, and they know that every document that they are getting in response is going to satisfy this query. So here's another information need. What are the requirements for disabled people to be able to access a workplace? So again, the query could be something like, I would like all documents having a word starting with DISAB in the same paragraph as a word starting with access, in the same sentence as one of these. So this is another departure from Google search, where spaces in Google search usually can be interpreted as the AND operator, although as I said it's not precisely AND, but you can think of spaces as by default as defaulting to AND, but here spaces default to OR. So you want in this sentence either the word worksite or the word workplace, or you want employment within 3 words, within 3 places of the word place. So this /3, so you're seeing these operators, right? /3, /s, /p. These are called proximity operators. They indicate that I want this word in the same paragraph as this word. I want this word in the same sentence as this word. I want this word within 3 words of this other word. And likewise, you can think of this. Here's a third example. I'd like all queries start where you have a word starting with host in the same paragraph as a word starting with responsive, or a word starting with liab in the same paragraph as a word starting with intoxicate, or a word starting with drunk in the same paragraph as guest. So space is disjunction, not conjunction, and this was actually the default before the modern search engines came along. And they have long, precise query. In fact, the average length of a query on Westlaw is 10 words. Do you know what the average length of a query on modern search engines is? Take a guess.
2 to 3.
That's right. So it's 2.4. So you can see that there are, on Westlaw, these professional searchers, and professional searchers are really professional. I mean, they are trained to translate information needs into queries. So you could be a lawyer who doesn't know how to search, so you can hire one of Westlaw's uh, uh, searchers to translate your information need into a precise query. On the other hand, you can't train people who use Google or Bing or any of the modern search engines because there's such a staggering variety of users all across the world. It's just impossible to train everyone. And that's one of the reasons why you find these Boolean operators only in the advanced search feature of Google, because most people don't, you'll never be able to train them to use Boolean queries. Maybe if you are in computer science or a related field, you might be used to thinking of queries as combinations of Boolean operators, but others can't be trained like that. They're going to type what they type, what they're going to type.
So,
Yeah.
are there proximity operators even in Google?
Um, no, there are no proximity operators
I've
in
used
Google,
only
but there
Boolean
are.
and stuffs, but not the proximity.
Sorry.
I've used the and or and double quotes, but not the proximity. So
Yeah, proximity operators are not there, but there is a way to handle proximity
okay.
without having these operators, and we'll see that either later in this lecture or in the next lecture. One of the ways, let me just tell you very briefly how we could handle proximity operators without actually having uh, an operator per se. One of the ways you can do that is by defining a document not as a single file, but as a single paragraph. Right. So, for example, let's say I want to implement this proximity operator /p. One way to do that is not to introduce an explicit operator, but to say that every document that I'm going to look at is going to be a single paragraph. Right. So if a file has multiple paragraphs, I could treat every paragraph in it as a separate document with its own doc ID. So that way, when I get uh, uh, when I have an AND query, I could and I get a particular document as a result, I know that it must have, those words must have been appearing in the same paragraph.
And how
We'll,
about wildcard entries
yeah,
in
wildcard
Google?
entries. Um, Wildcard entries. Well, let's try it out. Okay, let me just type my first four names and then star. Well, it doesn't interpret it
Yeah,
as a wildcard query. So here's the thing, right? Wildcard queries are again queries that probably only professional searchers would use,
yeah,
right? So it won't be the priority of a modern search engine to handle wildcard queries because most users are not going to use it anyway. Even Boolean search is available only if you click this advanced search tabs. You find, then they ask, you want web pages that have all these words or this exact wording, or you have this or operator over here. Okay, so this is the and, this is the or, and you want to exclude these words. So these are, this is like the not operator. So, and of course you can specify other constraints. You want only English documents and so on. But, this is not going to be used by most people. In fact, um, what was the statistics? I think it's definitely less than 10% of people who. Uh, so phrase queries are something that people tend to use more often, right? You can use. You've probably used phrase queries, right? Where you use double quotes, and the documents that you get will be documents which which have this exact phrase. So phrase queries, I think 10% of searchers on modern search engines, something around 10% have used phrase queries. But Boolean search, I mean, it's going to be much less, maybe 1%, less than 1%, something like that. See if you can find out what the exact statistics are for that. But the point is that because most users won't be using wildcard queries, it won't be the priority of a search engine to handle them. We will learn how to handle wildcard queries in a couple of lectures. So you'll learn how to do that. In fact, that should also help you understand why search engines would prefer not to have wildcard queries available too freely, because it's a pretty expensive operation to process wildcard queries. And you'll see that in a few lectures from now. Any other questions?
No, sir.